Good evening. Today is January 20th. It is 7 o'clock and calling to order the regular council meeting, requesting assistance with roll call.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Here.
Commissioner Madden,
Here.
Commissioner Kalish,
Here.
Mayor Kuhn,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson, Alder Nelson,
Here.
Alder Myers,
Present.
Alder Hanira,
Here.
Alder Lorman,
Here.
Alder Crow.
Here.
Okay, very good. Moving on to public comments, if you can assist me.
Yeah, right. We have a few public comments tonight. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak. If you would, please give your name and address at the beginning of your time. First up is Mark Opitz.
Thank you, Alder Nelson. I want to start with a compliment, and that is that at least 3 times today, I noticed the Parks and Rec crew out clearing the trails, the path system. And I was very impressed with how thorough they were and that it was just a fairly small snowfall. And I appreciated that they were out there so promptly in several parts of the city. So I just happened to see them all over. I started wondering how many crews we have, but it was really good. So thank you for doing that. The Cayuga path was being cleared as well. And I just, having attended the finance and personnel discussion and hearing the amendments that were made at that meeting regarding the airport fixed-based operator agreement, I'm sorry, the fixed-based operator agreement at the airport, I just would encourage you to at least postpone for at least 2 weeks that matter so that you can have a clean document before you. It brings back memories having worked on these issues a number of years ago, but I think there's some improvements that were made that perhaps can still be made. One of the concerns or observations that I would note and share with you from my experience working with it is that with the airport is that we have several agreements that are not in alignment on the same. For example, MADC has a land lease that ends in 2028, but then they get a 5-year right to have a 5-year extension to 2033. And having that aligned with the FBO agreement, and then of course, there's also separately the airport managers agreement. It seems like there should be some alignment in the years so that there can be greater flexibility for the city should there be other opportunities that present themselves. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kat Vaillant.
Can you hear me? All right. I prepared a little bit better this time. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Can you see me? Good. Wonderful. All right. I want to take a moment to speak plainly and from the heart. Let me take a minute. About things that are weighing heavily on many of us in our community right now. First, I want to speak to the budget and economic pressure so many of us are facing. People are concerned about inflation, about losing jobs, prices continuing to rise. Did I do something? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're
Okay.
fine.
Sorry. Turn it down?
No, just tilt it.
Oh, thanks. Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Rent prices continue to rise while wages don't keep up. These pressures affect everyone, working families, seniors, young adults, and children. The stress of trying to stay housed, keep food on the table, and plan for the future is exhausting. And it's something many of us are carrying every single day. Second, I want to address what's happening around ICE and racial profiling, particularly with what we are seeing and hearing in Minnesota. Regardless of where people stand politically, many families and individuals are living with real fear. People are worried about being targeted based on how they look, the language they speak, or where they are perceived to be formed. That kind of fear erodes trust, destabilizes communities, and makes people feel unsafe in places where they should feel protected. This impact is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. And third, I want to speak honestly about how many in the community, the BIPOC, that means Black, Indigenous, people of color, are feeling. They are afraid right now. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to go to work. I own businesses. I'm afraid to take my child to school. There are other Latinos and Black and Indigenous people who are getting letters from their schools saying that there's too many absentee, causing them to be truant. And it's because they're not safe to take their kids because they're afraid they might get snatched and they won't have a mom or dad to go home to. I have this book. The mayor was there. My elderly neighbor, my laundry dot that I talk about, was there. This book is a good book. Lisa, I think I saw you there. I don't know if you purchased, but I did. And it was $20 because it's better to buy it from the author than online because he told me 60% of it goes to Amazon. Anyways, great book, talks about World War II. This one, Jim Crow Laws. It's a 10th edition and it's happening right now. I'm closing with that because I do book talk, and hi to all my followers on social media for joining in. What I want to end with saying is people are telling us they are scared to go to work, frightened to send their children to school, and anxious, just trying to get through the day. That fear does not come from stories alone. It comes from lived experiences and from seeing neighbors and friends treated differently. There are reports across the Twin Cities of people avoiding workplaces, schoolyards because they feel targeted and unsafe. This fear undermines the trust and creates a heavy emotional burden on families and children who should feel secure in their own communities. Before I end, I do want to thank my alderman, Todd, for the last 90 days working diligently with my neighbors to put streetlights. It was dark. I mentioned that, and he put them up with the help of whoever. I applaud you for listening to my concerns. Everyone in my neighborhood is very happy with you making that happen so quickly because as we know, a soldier, and I'm going to end, I'm sorry, I know my time is, a soldier lost their lives. And thank you for raising the half staff as a military brat. That affected me in a good way to see that. Also, I will be showing these and putting it for people to take to warn our neighbors on the safeties of ICE. I will be speaking with the police chief to make sure that coordinations are going right because things are wrapping up quickly. And I said this 3 months ago, they're going to get worse. And they are. Respectfully, thank you, and I will be back. Bye. Yes, Lisa.
Would you repeat say the actual book titles, please? I think it's the new Jim
Absolutely.
Crow and, yes.
The new Jim Crow laws. It's the 10th anniversary about mass incarceration in the age of color blindness. 10th edition, and the author has noticed nothing has changed, it's gotten worse. The book, and I'm part of the Middleton Historical Society. I'm the youngest member, thank you. Because I love history, and if we don't teach the correct history, we will keep erasing it, and I don't want that anymore for my children and my grandchildren. I'm 44 next week. Thank you.
Kat,
The title of that.
Oh, title. I'm sorry, the book, my book to you from the Greenland Patrol, the WW2 Journal of Howard J. Foltersack. Awesome, awesome. Historical. Just get the book. I'm Amazon. I'm plugging it, but I've talked close with him. We're going to do this on TikTok. Hi, my family. Thank you for joining.
and Kat, just say your full name and address, please.
Yes. Caterina Bellon Sanabria,
Thank you.
6313, Lakeview.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah Siddiqui. If I said that wrong, I apologize. Sarah? Oh, I'm sorry. You said you did not want to speak. My apologies. My apologies.
Is it in support or against?
Support without speaking, airport FBO.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next up is Richard Morey.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Richard Morey, 701 Country Air Court in Wanakee. I'm not a politician or a public speaker. I'm an airport operator, flight instructor, and third-generation member of a family that has served the community through aviation for more than 8 decades. I sincerely thank the Common Council for the opportunity to speak tonight about the fixed base operator contract between Morey Airplane Company and the city. Morey Airplane Company has continuously operated at the airport since my grandfather founded it in 1942. That's 84 years. This represents generations of trust, institutional knowledge, and commitment to the airport and this community. I took over daily operations 24 years ago in 2002. During that time, Maury Airplane Company has worked productively and cooperatively with the city. The FBO has consistently provided a venue to the community, hosting annual events such as pancake breakfasts, working with community-based organizations that engage youth in STEM, provided learning opportunities for underrepresented youth, and is a home to a nonprofit organization. Today, Maury Airplane Company employs more than 40 people in skilled aviation jobs, flight instructors, mechanics, line technicians, administrative staff. We operate 9 training aircraft and 1 charter aircraft. We provide affordable flight instruction from private pilot through certified flight instructor ratings. Over the years, thousands of pilots have trained at Maury Airplane Company. Many Middleton residents, including Middleton High School students, took their very first lessons with us. For many, that first lesson became a lifelong career in aviation, the military, or public service. Under the Fixed Base Operator Agreement, the FBO must be housed in the terminal building owned by Middleton Area Development Corporation. If our contract is not renewed, we would be required to vacate that building. With no place to operate on the Middleton Municipal Airport Maury Field, we would have to relocate. The consequences of this are significant. Relocating our operation would require displacing over 40 employees, moving an entire maintenance facility and 2 fuel storage tanks, along with all the associated infrastructure. This disruption would be felt immediately by students, pilots, and the broader community, resulting in significant loss of income to the airport and the city. This would be the loss of 84 years of experience and relationships. It would mean at the end of the longest continuous operating fixed base operator in the state of Wisconsin, a distinction that reflects positively on the community's stewardship of the airport. Tonight, I respectfully ask the council to consider not only the numbers, but the people, the history, and the long-term impact. I ask you to vote tonight to renew the Maury Airplane Company's contract to allow us to continue to serve Middleton as we have for generations. I am willing to sign the contract as modified by the Finance Committee. No issues. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the future of the Middleton Airport. And in closing, I would state that yes, there are some issues that can be worked out. They don't need to be worked out prior to our contract being renewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kevin Spittler.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Spittler. I live at 6848 Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue. I'm here tonight just to speak on a couple of topics briefly, very briefly. One is an item on the consent agenda, which is the approval of the quotes for Pleasant View Golf Course to buy electric green mowers. I want to publicly thank the staff and the committee for supporting that effort and for getting green mowers and using our sustainable purchasing policy to make the wise choice. I sent them a thank you email, and I wanted to make a public statement to that effect. The other thing is, I know it's not part of the council meeting, but later tonight is the topic of the community campus. I was on the campus committee for the past year, and I know there'll be plenty of other opportunities coming to make comment on it, but I think what we find ourselves in now is a sweet spot. And I think with Bill Burns' proposal for leveling out the tax impact on residents, we should take advantage of that opportunity in his tax mitigation strategy to make something important happen in the next year. Get started with it, take advantage of the window of opportunity that we have that he's identified in the tax mitigation strategy that will allow us to minimize the impact on residents, taxpayers, I should say. So at the same time, there's a big question as to what we're going to be able to get for any of those amounts of money. And that is the big question moving forward, I guess. But thank you for the opportunity and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Kevin. Next is Bill Connors.
Bill Connors, 15, oh, sorry, wrong address, 25 West Main Street, Madison. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the evening, opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm Bill Connors, Executive Director of Smart Growth Greater Madison, an organization founded over 20 years ago to provide accurate information about the impacts of local government ordinances and policies on real estate development, particularly housing development. Smart Growth Greater Madison urges you to make 2 changes to the draft Housing Action Plan. Under the state law that granted Middleton city government the privilege of extending the duration of a tax increment district by 1 year to generate revenue to use for housing, at least 75% of the TIF, that extra year TIF money must be used to benefit affordable housing. Using this money to provide financial incentives to construct more housing definitely benefits affordable housing. Providing money to fix up older, well-worn properties with lower rents also benefits affordable housing. In contrast, spending the extra year TIF money on providing services for people already living in housing or seeking housing does not benefit affordable housing. It doesn't create any more housing units, and a lack of supply of housing is the primary cause of the housing crisis in Middleton and Dane County. It doesn't even improve the quality of older properties with lower rents. Spending the limited pool of extra year TIF money on services diverts resources from compelling needs. The state legislature did not give the extra year of TIF money to enable city governments to have another source of revenue to pay for services that otherwise would be paid for from the general fund or with grant money. Smart Growth Greater Madison urges you to amend the Housing Action Plan to remove 2 items under strategy number 2 about providing for supportive services and providing funding to nonprofit organizations for case management. If you believe these are imperative, it's imperative to fund these items, please amend the Housing Action Plan to make clear that these items should be funded from the resources of the general fund or from grant money rather than from the extra year TIF money. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bill. Next is Alder Randall Crowe.
I am actually reading some correspondence I received from one of my constituents. So this is from Dorothy Hawkins at 3407 Roman Lane, number 3 in Middleton. She had sent this letter out to address some issues that she was concerned with. Over the past 15 years, I've lived in Middleton since 2009 when my son was attending MATC in downtown Madison for IT. I relocated here to assist him in getting around for doctor's appointments and affordable grocery stores. And then she goes on to talk about over the past 15 years, I came to love Middleton and its people, the strong community bonds people held for this place, its history and traditions. Reminds me a lot of my hometown of Janesville before the Chevy plant closed. For these reasons, I serve on the board of directors with the Middleton Area Historical Society and love to greet visitors on Saturdays at the Rowley House Museum. When I moved here, the rents were high, but certainly more reasonable than in Madison proper. I didn't mind it. My income was sufficient at that time to live comfortably. Now in 2025, I find myself in what's called a donut hole financially due to many factors, including helping her son out while he was in school and seeking a job in the area. Census sources of information about Middleton show the median average income for home ownership at around $89,000 per year. Sources state that median average income for renters isn't tracked, but is known to be well below that $89,000 per year. The city of Middleton retains any information on the median average income of Middleton's renter residents. I haven't seen it. Here's the issue. The census data estimates that at least 44% of Middleton's residents are renters. When looking at what people can afford for housing, a 2024 report shows that a family with an income of $35,000 a year can afford about $835 a month for mortgage rent, for a mortgage payment. My income is well below that lowest number shown, but slightly above the official levels euphemistically titled heavily cost burdened. It's a fancy way of saying people are living in poverty here. My monthly rent is $300 more per month than what someone with an annual income $8,000 higher than mine can afford for a mortgage. Yet, because I am slightly above some arbitrary line which defines my situation as heavily cost burdened, I do not qualify for any help from government programs designed to assist poor people. Middleton's recent growth spurt has been amazing. So many new apartment buildings being built. Being able to accommodate more renters is great, but what about affordability? Affordable housing should be about 30% of monthly income. Right now, rent is costing 49.17% of my monthly income, and my income is fixed. Obviously, this level of rent is unsustainable over time for me. After living here for 15 years and loving it, I loathe to uproot myself elsewhere. If Middleton wishes to retain its strong community bonds, character, and traditions, its leaders will aggressively address the need to control the cost of rent here. One report I read said that only 5% of housing in Dane County is set aside for affordable units. I suggest Middleton lead the way in correcting this with robust policies of making Middleton affordable for everyone, lest Middleton lose its particular motto of the good neighbor city by pricing out long-term renters like me.
Thank you, Alder Crow. Can you please repeat Dorothy's last name for me?
Hawkins, Hawkins.
Thank you. Next is Fernando Escobar.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for the time to allow me to just address a couple of concerns and provide some feedback on the draft housing action plan that's addressing affordable housing. First item is the Wisconsin Housing Economic Development Authority, WHEDA, allows 80% units for its competitive tax credit program. And they count those as affordable and workforce housing units. In your plan, you note priorities for 2026 to 2035 to basically target 80% units within the plan as affordable. However, you don't count those units as workforce or affordable when it comes to being TIF eligible as a TIF eligible criteria. I do want to note that that 80% is a statewide standard. And again, you note it as affordable in your plan. So I think it's inconsistent to not have it be a TIF eligible criteria. Doesn't reconcile otherwise. So I would suggest respectfully to take a look at that. I was a little unclear in reading it, but I do want to make the point that in case I didn't read it right, I do think it's prudent for funds to not be turned over to a management company. The council has an obligation to maintain control of the funds and make the decisions to not turn them over to a third party. Respectfully, who knows what will happen when the allocation of those funds is turned over into another party. Another item is respectfully, it doesn't seem appropriate to hire a full-time staff member when the funding is only for 1 year. As far as tax incremental financing, I think it is, again, a prudent move to require to lease to employees that can demonstrate a W-2 that they reside in the city of Middleton before leasing to outsiders. That would help, obviously, people within the city of Middleton take advantage of the affordable housing being created in Middleton. The funds are not intended to help Middleton workers find housing. Excuse me, the funds are intended to help Middleton workers find housing, not bring in people who can't afford housing to Middleton, where they can take up units intended for Middleton workers. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Fernando, before you go, could we get your address?
Oh,
please?
yes, Fernando Escobar, 709 Emerson in Madison.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Okay, if that is the case, I have one more speaker. Alder Lisa Hanairo would like to speak.
Yes, and I, like Alder Crow, I'm reading a comment for a constituent, Brian Wakeham. He says, I would encourage the city to actively utilize the state of Wisconsin procurement systems. The State Bureau of Procurement, SBOP, has utilized a system called VendorNet for numerous years. On this site, the state has a plethora of established contracts that enable local governments to piggyback on to take advantage of generous discounts. The system also allows local governments and school districts to post bids and proposals. The reach is extensive as in and out of state entities are in the system and receive alerts to procurement opportunities. Examples of contracts include model year 2025 passenger, law enforcement vehicles, and light-duty trucks, including cab and chassis up to Class 5, electrical and plumbing, MRO commodities, Staples contract with discounts from 18 to 80% off list price, small package delivery services with UPS and FedEx, and environmental consulting services, to name a few. There are 415 contracts on this site, and all these contracts go through the Department of Administration SBOP contractual review. As stated in many council and committee meetings, the budgets have been tight in recent years and residents have tax fatigue. With increasing numbers of residents, staff, and demands, it is time that the city initiates a comprehensive plan in strategic sourcing. This would reflect disciplined tracking and review of spending practices, as well as transparency in category spend. The council should establish cost reduction or avoidance targets reported by the city manager or finance manager. The new ERP system will enable you to track this information if set up correctly, and it should be done as part of the ROI. I would encourage the Finance and Personnel Committee to think about a subgroup to look at all contracts and bids proposals over a certain dollar threshold to ensure that the city is performing its due diligence, since there is no procurement expert on staff. Asking residents to pay more fees and taxes while not showing how the city approaches and analyzes spending is a disservice to the community. I would encourage you to reach out into the community to find volunteer resources that can assist you in this task. These resources exist in the community and may be willing to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that's it for public comments.
Moving on to public hearings. The time is now 7:29. Opening the public hearing for Toro and Pampa, DBA Toro y Pampa is requesting a Class B fermented malt beverage and Class C wine license located at 3301 Parmenter Street with Carlos Lema, 1414 Teresa Terrace, Fort Madison, Wisconsin, as agent. Is there anyone here to speak on this public hearing? All right. Anyone here to speak on this public hearing? And asking a third time, is there anyone here to speak on this public hearing? Hearing none, gonna go ahead and close. The time is now 7:30. Closing the public hearing for Toro y Pampa and their request for a fermented malt beverage and Class C wine license. Moving on to proclamations. The proclamation Winter Salt Week proclamation. Whereas the city of Middleton is home to valued lakes, streams, wetlands, and groundwater resources that are essential to our community's health, recreation, and quality of life, and whereas salt applied to roads, parking lots, and sidewalks within Middleton does not disappear, but eventually enters our local waterways and groundwater, contributing to increased chloride levels, and whereas chloride contamination is rising across our region and poses long-term risks to drinking water supplies, aquatic life, and ecosystem health. And whereas even small amounts of salt, just 1 teaspoon, can pollute 5 gallons of water to levels harmful to aquatic organisms. and once chloride enters water systems, it is extremely difficult and costly to remove. And whereas smart winter maintenance practices help protect Middleton's freshwater resources while also reducing damage to roads, vehicles, sidewalks, landscaping, and private property, all while maintaining public safety. And whereas educating residents, businesses, property managers, and contractors about responsible salt use is critical to balancing winter safety with environmental stewardship in our community. And whereas Winter Salt Week provides an opportunity for the city of Middleton to highlight effective de-icing practices, safe winter travel behaviors, and alternatives that reduce unnecessary salt use. And whereas Middleton residents and businesses can make a meaningful difference by learning smart salting techniques, adjusting winter habits, and choosing trained service providers who follow best practices. Now therefore, the Common Council and Mayor of Middleton do hereby proclaim January 26th through 30th, 2026 as Winter Salt Week in the city of Middleton and encourage residents, businesses, and community partners to take part in activities and actions that promote the responsible use of de-icing salt to keep our community safe while protecting our lakes, streams, and groundwater for current and future generations. This proclamation was adopted at a regular meeting of the Middleton Common Council on this 20th day of January 2026. Is there a motion?
This is Nairo. I move approval of the proclamation.
Myers, I'll second.
Any comments? Alder
I-
Myers?
I'd just like to take a moment to recognize our Public Works Department for the work that they have done over the years in making sure that Middleton's use of salt is judicious and that has resulted in cost savings for the city. I think next year, if we do this same proclamation, we should make sure to include the money that can be saved by more prudent use of salt when it is necessary to use.
Excellent insight. Thank you. Anybody, any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the Winter Salt Week proclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion?
I think we have a presentation.
Oh, I apologize. Oh, yes. I was moving right along. Moving on to the presentation and discussion on the draft housing action plan addressing affordability in Middleton. And I believe we have two speakers, so yes, please come on up and introduce yourselves.
My name is Carrie Laurie. I am a Middleton resident. I work in Middleton also and a member of the Community Development Authority.
I'm Alan Hickle, and I've worked with the Workforce Housing Committee, I chair that committee, and Education and Outreach Committee.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. Again, I'm Carrie Laurie, a member of the CDA, here with Alan Hickle to present the Housing Action Plan tonight to you all. Oh. Oh, down. Oh, I went too far. Okay, got it. This plan is a product of several years of research and collaboration between the Workforce Housing Committee and the Community Development Authority. It is a strategic roadmap tailored to Middleton's unique economic landscape. The city has already done a lot to tackle the housing issue. Regulatory changes like allowing mixed use districts, allowing accessory dwelling units, and providing incentives to builders to build affordable units have already happened in Middleton. The Common Council approved an affordable housing extension for TID 3 in April of 2025. State statute does require that the funding generated from that extension is used to benefit affordable housing and improve the housing stock in the city, which brings us to the plan we are presenting here today. To build the affordable housing or the housing action plan, we didn't reinvent the wheel. Our work is grounded in the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy, which utilized an 80-person advisory committee and data-driven planning We took the best practices from across the county, like Sun Prairie's tenant resource partnerships, and modified them to fit our specific needs here in the Good Neighbor City. Why now? Because Middleton is facing what experts call the big squeeze. Currently, our average single-family home value is approximately $553,000. To afford that comfortably, a family needs significantly more than the area median income. Even a household at 100% AMI, or that area median income, making about $90,900 a year, is priced out of the average Middleton home by over $200,000. This isn't just about our potential buyers, it's about our current neighbors. 35% of our renters and 29% of our homeowners are officially cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. We are talking about pre-K teachers, our counselors, our retail associates, the people who make Middleton work and often can't afford to live here. To stabilize, the data shows that Middleton needs to add an average of 318 units per year through 2040. Crucially, the regional housing strategy advises that 26% of those should be legally restricted affordable units. The progress we have made 2020 to 2025 is shown here, but this shows that supply gap that we are trying to tackle. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alan to discuss how that our plan gets us there.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, so that's the problem we're trying to tackle here. And the plan here, we've got 4 main areas. Increasing the number of housing units attainable to low and moderate income households, providing resources, housing, and protections for our most vulnerable citizens. Keeping up and rehabbing existing affordable housing that exists in Middleton, and preserving those existing affordable homes, and then providing more pathways to home ownership. For strategy 1 here, we are looking at a couple of strategies, but all of them are in support of removing barriers that affordable housing developers have when trying to build affordable units in our community. Things like gap financing or temporary land banking can help speed up processes for developers. And for all of them, time is what ultimately kills many projects that they try to do in any community in Dane County. That funding and stability can create the certainty that those developers need for complex affordable housing financing and to get those projects to move forward. For strategy 2, we want to fund support services through partners in our community to prevent evictions before they happen, not only because it's good for residents, it is good for those people who maintain those affordable housing units, keeping their income stream intact and keeping people in their homes. That was one thing that became clear to many of the developer partners that we talked to, is that supportive housing services is a gap in Middleton in particular and across Dane County. Strategy 3, we pivot a little bit towards what we already have. We have existing programs that rehab existing properties and fund energy efficiency programs through things like the efficiency navigators. That has already helped 32 families in Middleton lower their utility bills with green energy improvements to those existing housing units. And then strategy 4, we aim to partner and amplify the impact of existing organizations to provide down payment assistance to first-time buyers so people can build generational wealth here in Middleton. As far as the schedule goes, we have a clear 1-year roadmap that we're proposing here. And it's starting now, kind of starting to share the presentation or the plan, continuing to listen to you all and others in the community and gathering their feedback and incorporating that into the plan. Immediate next steps would be for the establishment of an affordable housing fund, taking the money approved in the TIF extension from last April and devoting that towards the creation of Middleton's Affordable Housing Fund. We're also recommending hiring a dedicated staff person to manage the implementation of this fund as we partner with several development partners and other organizations in our community. The city would need additional help in ensuring those partnerships went well and went smoothly. And that ensures that we continue to act on this plan and don't just create a fund and do nothing with it. One of the kind of the clear goals that we have for the success is that we would like to start dispensing money from that fund within the year for supportive services and for housing rehab in the community. Those are two shovel-ready projects, as they say, available in our community. So this is the next part of it. Here's, you know, the work of a core group of people that you saw on that first slide. They've kind of written something down, and that's always a great place to start because we can point at it and say, well, this part's kind of weird, or I would change this, or I would do that. And we've got a schedule up here of several different meetings where we would like to do that listening. And then we would like to have that the Common Council pass the resolution of the closing TID 3 and then approving the Affordable Housing Action Plan on that April 7th meeting. So kind of in conclusion here, Middleton has already shown leadership in the past. We've previously done over $11 million in TIF assistance for affordable units in Middleton. And this plan kind of captures the regional momentum of trying to make our community more affordable. It's grounded in best practices learned in the regional housing strategy. It's grounded in learnings from developers that are already working in our community and from people on this council. So yeah, we want to make sure that our city remains a place for everyone, where everyone can grow and thrive. So thank you, and we are happy to take questions, comments.
I'll start. Thank you for all of your work and your leadership. I know that there are many on council who have been also working on this for much, much time, and their time is well appreciated. And in saying that, I do appreciate you coming here to share this and to share that long plan and the ideas, as well as some of the comments from the people who have come forward tonight, whether it's to tweak it a little or just full-on support. It is truly an opportunity in the next year. In saying that, do people have comments from the council? Alder Myers?
Yeah, first, thank you for your work. I have not been to your meetings, but I have watched every one of them that has been uploaded to YouTube. So I understand just how much thought that you've put into all of this. I am going to have other comments, but I'm making this one just to get the ball rolling for my colleagues. Under Services Strategy 2B in the draft document, enhance resources for tenant rights. I appreciate that there is an RFP that you want to do. And I support doing RFPs for all services contracts that the city has, especially at this scale. However, I don't think it's appropriate on the page where you have, we will do an RFP, to then have a potential applicant highlighted for that RFP. And for my colleagues, this is page 16 of 28 on the draft housing plan. So I understand that there are a limited number of potential applicants for this particular service in Dane County. But if we're actually doing an RFP, it's not appropriate to highlight one on the same page where we're talking about it. I also do generally have some concerns about the use of what is a financial windfall in ways which are not long-term accretive to that fund. Because once that money is spent, it's gone. And the city is unlikely to have another TIF that is as financially successful as the one we've closed to create this fund. So thinking long-term, I want us to, in this plan, really engage with affordable housing in a way that does not deplete the fund over time, but rather uses it as an endowment to ensure that the city remains affordable for the people who live here and the people who might want to live here. I have other comments, but I just wanted to get the ball rolling.
Thank you so much. I love the idea of engaging with affordable housing. I think you said a long term of those things, so much appreciated. Oh, Alder Kalish.
Yeah, so thank you, and thanks to everybody that's participated in development of this plan to date. It's pretty thorough. And in my district, and over the course of the last year, we had a unit that's transitioning out of affordable housing. And there's 80 units, around 80 families significantly impacted by this. And so when we address this, we need to be holistic. It needs to be multifaceted. So providing resources to folks that are impacted by this is key. It's very important because the resources and the opportunities that folks have to relocate in the Madison area are slim to none. And it will take months, if not years. So thank you for being multifaceted in this plan. Just one recommendation, and members of council know that I bring this up a lot, the holistic and big picture thinking, but also data and information. I'm a data person. And so just a suggestion for the plan is, identify very succinctly where we're at in Middleton right now. How many affordable housing units do we have? We identified some goals based on Dane County Regional Housing Strategy, which I think is great. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. But we need to show people, where we're at now, and we're in not a great spot, I think. And that needs to be highlighted, in my opinion. And we also need to really put out there, very succinct, goals, so we want to have this many affordable housing units by this date, this date, this date, this date. And if we're not meeting them, then we need to evaluate why and reprioritize and readjust our strategies for addressing some of those things. So just some thoughts. Thank you.
Very good. I like a good timeline. Goalpost, all the things. Nope, we're good. They must really enjoy it. Wonderful. Alder Hanira?
I just want to thank my colleagues who worked on this plan with me and the other folks who served on the two subcommittees that, and Alder Myers, you mentioned you had watched the videos. I hope you were able to find the subcommittee videos too under ad hoc. They kind of, didn't stand out. I just wanted to say a few things in addition to what Carrie and Alan have told us. First of all, responding to the comment about not advising the hiring of a full-time planner to do this work because the funds are available only for a year. That is not true. The funds do not need to be spent within 1 year. So I just wanted to correct that. Regarding the comment about benefiting affordable housing, it's true that the TID Affordable Housing Extension under state statute is to benefit affordable housing. And I believe the legislature's interest in creating this statute was to make it possible to both buy or build housing, but also make it possible for people to live in that housing. And one of the things that we learned, Alan and another member of Workforce Housing and I learned at the Smart Growth Madison's workshop on May 30th last year, was that people need to be given support, not just a box. We can build the units, but it may take, and this is something that I did not realize until that workshop, it may take some assistance from people who know how to do case management and help folks identify resources. It takes those resources to keep people living in those affordable units, the income limited or restricted units that we might build. And so for that reason, we didn't want to invest just in giving people a box. We wanted to invest in helping make it possible and likely that they will continue to stay in those units. And that's why the support services are in there. Alder Kalish talked about succinct goals, how many units and how are we assessing them. I had a nice conversation with Olivia Perry, who is the county's senior planner for the regional housing strategy, which our plan is modeled on. And she too identified a need for us to be very clear about what the evaluation will be, the frequency, and also the parameters. And she also expressed interest in identifying those goals for specifically the income restricted units. And then the point about this funding, 10.3 to 10.8 million, I believe it's still estimated at. That is a finite resource. In the back of the plan, pages 25 through 27, this is the parking lot for all the things that at one point was on our list of actions to consider, and we determined these needed to go on their own into and other recommendations. But there are some in there, such as solicit private donations from major employers and community benefactors to fund workforce housing. And an example was the city of Sheboygan Falls has a new development, Founders Point. It's well under construction, has been for a few years. They received $2 million grants from 5 different entities, including the county, and they built affordable housing, owner occupied units. So that was one that we thought maybe could work here. We also have, it was recommended to include item Q on page 27, which is explore partnership with the school district to obtain financial support and or acquire surplus land for the construction of housing units. So the idea there is if we can help build with this fund, if we can help build affordable housing for teachers who are trying to, who teach in our schools already but cannot afford to live here, maybe we can get some support from the school district to carve out some units specifically for those folks. Let them be there for, say, 5 years until they find their own housing and continue to make those units available. This is an example from both Sauk Prairie and also Hawaii apparently does this. Who would guess that you need to incentivize people to move to Hawaii? I guess it's just really expensive. And then finally, we also have explore partnerships. This is item S. Explore partnerships with employers or employer assisted housing through contributions to affordable housing construction projects. So the idea from the beginning was to not just take the funds and spend it all down. The idea is to use those funds to be the nucleus of a growing fund that we would encourage and solicit donations to. So I just wanted to make that clear that this is what we envisioned. And that's all I have to say. Thank you both very much.
Wonderful. Thank you for those highlights. Was there any other topics? Alder Myers?
Yeah, if there's no one else, I'll say a little bit more. The reason I mentioned that I do view it as so fundamentally and foundationally important that overall what we do with the 75% approved in the resolution, creating this for development be accretive is because the services, the staff, and the grants portion in the 25% will eat down potentially the fund over the long term. especially the administration costs for certain items in the 75% if we are not entering into agreements that are accretive to the fund balance overall when we do things like financing projects. So I just want to make sure that what we end up with in this fund is a fund where in 20 years, when none of us are on council anymore, hopefully, we can look back and say, wow, when I voted for this affordable housing fund, I couldn't imagine the amount of money that it is now able to command for the financing of units to keep people here. So I just, again, I'm not opposed to anything specifically in here aside from once we move from draft to final, I don't think we should have any reference to any specific service provider at any point where we're considering an RFP. But I do want us to make sure that we include in this plan language for prudent financial management, what the ROI we're expecting is, the percentage of the overall fund balance that we're expecting back on certain financing projects, and how much of that is from these, and how much of that covers the staff. Sorry if that wasn't terribly clear, but I do want to see overall what the drawdown is expected to look like for certain fixed costs that are embedded in the plan.
Sure, yeah.
I just want to say thank you again for all of your work and for making sure that we included supportive services for people who already live here in affordable housing. I know there was some brief discussion at a committee of the whole meeting. I can't remember if it was 2 meetings ago or 3 meetings ago about establishing a sort of grant fund for helping homeowners who are in aging affordable housing to maintain their stock. I also noticed in the draft that one of the proposals is to have a renter assistance support service, as well as including money for case management. I can say, as having served on the board of the Commission on Aging, who has recommended a few case management sort of help aids in regard to that's really important. You know, being able to maintain people's dignity in their homes is part of this affordability picture. And so I'm really grateful that you included that in the overall plan.
Yeah, one of the things that we learned about supportive services in particular with our school board partners and our district partners is that having the money available for intervention in crisis and preventing an eviction isn't something necessarily that would square out on a balance sheet, but for that child, what we're doing is avoiding, we call adverse childhood events, which there's a growing body of literature on. When these things happen, they kind of cascade into multiple different failures over the lifetime of that child. So we think about this initial start in the creation of the fund as a way to plant a lot of different seeds that will bear fruit over a longer term. I think it is important to think about the long-term viability of the fund and how we might add to it and grow it over time. But also with the understanding that some of these seeds that we plant might not show up on a balance sheet.
Just a couple final comments that I appreciate Alder Madden bringing up what she did. One of the rehab items is actually You know, we think of it a lot as energy efficiency, making it, you know, easier to afford utilities and things like that. But there's also the need for people who want to age in place to be able to install those, you know, chair lift or the stair chair and bathrooms that are accessible. So that is envisioned in this strategy as well. And then I wanted to go back to the comment made earlier about the funding being, the idea being to make this all available just for people who live in Middleton now. And if you look at the vision on page 7 of the document, that is not our intention. We very intentionally set the vision as housing will be available and affordable for people who live in Middleton and want to stay here, for people who work in Middleton, and for the broader Dane County workforce. And each of those pieces is important. I think the first one is self-explanatory, but for people who work in Middleton, to not be able to afford to live in Middleton, not everybody wants to move here, but many people do. And having a 1 hour or 45-minute commute each way because they can't afford the cost of living here, that's unacceptable. That is a real burden for people, and we want to be able to try to fix that with this plan. And then also for the broader Dane County workforce, we talked about this. Is it our obligation to make housing affordable for people who work elsewhere? You know, let's say they work at Epic, but they want to live in Middleton. Our answer was yes, because Verona is making housing available for people who work in Middleton. You know, this is a countywide problem. The regional housing strategy is a countywide document that 80-some people contributed to throughout the county. And so we very intentionally set the mission to have those 3 components.
Very good. With that, I think we can move on. Thank you for your time. It's much appreciated. Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Sure, the motion would be items 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
We'll pull 3 and 4 out for additional discussion.
Thank you for that. Is there a second?
Can I roll second?
Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving consent agenda items 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving back to consent agenda item number 3, amendment number 1 to the agreement with Parkitecture and Planning for the Firefighters Memorial Park ADA improvement in an amount not to exceed $3,764. Is there a motion?
Yeah, so Brian, you have the notes on that, or did Bill? It's not a significant change. We're just going to ask for an extension out to August 31st. Brian will read the details.
Yeah, so in lieu of the amendment number 1 that's in the packet, the motion would be to amend the existing contract terms with Parkitecture Plus Planning LLC to a new term of August 31, 2026. And the reason for the change is that the current contract incorporates both the scope of work and the funding necessary for this project. So the amendment number 1 in and of itself is not needed, but for a change to the contract terms to allow the work to proceed.
Much appreciated. Is there a motion?
This is Haniro. I'll make that motion.
Gorman will second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving consent agenda number 3 on the agreement with Parkitecture and Planning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to renewal of fixed-based operator FBO contract for the Middleton Municipal Airport with Maury Airplane Company, subject to city attorney approval.
Sure. So, first thing, you can get at this a couple different ways, but, we have some,
Is there a motion?
Myers, I'll move to defer consideration of this item until the next regularly scheduled city council meeting so that we have the final markup language in the contract in front of us.
I was going to just say that, finance and personnel already did make those amendments to it. It wasn't, significant language changes, so.
Wait, at the,
Yeah.
thank you
Oh, I'm
for
sorry.
saying that.
I got
But
cut
we
off. I
have
mean,
a
I
motion.
wanted to.
I understand, but you were, I asked if there was a motion. He has made a motion. Is there a second to deferring till the next city council meeting?
Mrs. Madden, I'll second that.
Okay, any comments? And I understand you were just talking, so I do want to hear that.
Sure.
But this is on the deferral. Yes, Alder Myers?
Yeah, so I understand that finance and personnel feel that these changes are not substantial. And I understand that Mr. Maury is here and has said he is comfortable with the updated language in his public comment. This is more of a general principle. I don't like agreeing to a contract that I haven't read. And while I have read the contract prior to the edits in rather exhaustive detail at airport commission meetings and also prior to this meeting, I do think that there may be some items that came up in finance and personnel, which once the final language is in the contract, some of my colleagues on council might like to see and further discuss.
Thank you for sharing that. Alder Haniro?
Just to say that the changes, I apologize for interrupting my colleague who was trying to give some context for the motion. The motion would have been just to approve renewal as of the agreement as amended at the Finance and Personnel Committee. Then we would have explained what the changes were. I think the folks who participated in the discussion and folks who were in the room during the discussion may think the changes are not substantial. There's the addition of a reference to the voluntary noise abatement procedures that we have. That's to make the proposed FBO renewal agreement consistent with the SASO agreement that we have in place with Capital Flight. That's a simple change, just the addition of a parenthetical in the right of flight paragraph. And then the second one was to remove a cap on the fuel flowage fee that can be charged. And that simplified the language. It got rid of, we discussed quite a bit whether to provide some guidance. It had to be market forces or, consistent with the market. We kept it simple by just acknowledging that the current fee is 11 cents per gallon and that the city has the right to increase that. That was it. I don't think there were any other changes that we made. Those are pretty simple. I would say we can see them on the screen now if members want to read the actual language change, but
I'm gonna
they were
call the
minimal.
question and let the council decide, but I do appreciate your insights. All those in favor of deferring consent agenda item number 4, please say aye.
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 Okay, I'm gonna ask, if you are an aye, can you raise your hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all those opposed, please say nay and raise your hand.
Nay.
Okay, so 5-3 is the vote. And motion to defer is approved. I
I have
do
a point of
expect that the next meeting we would have those things that you're talking about.
Sure.
And showing those.
I just have a point of order. Did all the council members have an opportunity to discuss? Because I don't believe the question can be called until all the members do.
Right, is there any other comment?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
that's, sorry. I just wanted to say that I supported the deferral simply for two reasons. One, as Charles stated, I also am uncomfortable with something going to finance and then immediately coming to here if we're going to make changes. Most of the time, like you said, they're small and understandable, but I think as a practice, it's always troubled me a little bit to have something happen in a meeting directly beforehand, and then there's changes. Sometimes they're very easy to explain, and sometimes they're not. So I supported that, but also, there isn't a big push to get this done. It's my understanding is that that contract doesn't actually expire until December 31st of 2026. And so I was actually surprised to see it so early on our agenda, and I don't think that deferring that decision by 2 weeks is really going to make that big of a difference as far as that's concerned, and gives us time to review changes.
Okay, thank you for that insight. And, all right, so we got through items 3 and 4 of the consent agenda as the rest. Moving on to the miscellaneous selection of enterprise resource planning system vendor.
Sure, on behalf of Finance and Personnel, this was moved forward. We support moving ahead with this. Have $600,000 and then subsequent years thereafter. I'm not looking at my notes, about $142,000. And it's a big moving to a single source system to take on a lot of our call it administrative needs and tasks. There wasn't really anything. Okay.
So that was the motion. Is there a second?
Myers, I'll second.
Myers, a second. Thank you for that. Any comments before staff is going to give a brief discussion? Nope, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we've been working on this project for almost a year, going back to selecting our system selection consultant and going through an evaluation process. In fall of last year, the Finance Committee and Council had authorized the issuing of a request for proposal for a new enterprise resource planning or software system that would replace the city's current financial software, payroll HR software, and utility billing systems with a single integrated solution. In response to that RFP, we had 6 proposals. All of those met the minimum requirements. We had an evaluation committee that was formed that reviewed the proposals, scored them, selected the top 3 as finalists. And then we went through an extensive review process with those finalists, including 2-day demonstrations with each vendor that included the evaluation committee, as well as representatives from other city departments and functional leads, reference checking, evaluation of the cost proposals, and analysis by our system selection consultants. The recommendation from the evaluation committee and from the comments that we received from others that participated in the process was unanimous to support Tyler Technologies. Included in the packet is a memo that shows the breakdown of the final scoring by area as weighted. Tyler was, in our opinion, the clear overall solution that was the best for the city. A couple things that made that stand out is it was the only fully integrated solution that met all of our requirements on a single platform. Some of the other proposals had different partners that had integrated solutions to try to meet our requirements, but there were limitations on the sharing of data between those two systems, and we didn't feel that it would fully meet our goal of having a single integrated system with a single sign-in and full sharing of data across the platforms. It takes advantage of modern technology in several areas, but a couple standouts are improved purchasing capabilities, vendor portals, support for e-procurement, integration with GIS related to our utility billing and management, the ability to do personnel forecasting, have that roll into budget, be able to drill down and see that details, and some of the advanced budgeting forecasting tools. Staff, I believe, universally felt that Tyler had the best overall user interface, single login. It's a cloud-based solution. It would be accessible by city staff regardless of location. It's a site-based license for the city of Middleton, so there's no restriction on the number of users that can use the system. We also felt that it had the most realistic and most supported implementation process. It has a 21-month implementation timeline, which while that does sound like a long time, this is a major project and we want to make sure that there's adequate time to do that correctly, get this built the right way, and do that in phases so that we can support that with the staff that we have. There's also additional support included in the agreement, both during implementation as well as post-go live with an enhanced level of support to make sure that once we go live with the system, we have the support and staff have the tools to make sure that it's functioning the way it was intended. And Tyler also has a very strong presence in Wisconsin with some of the larger municipalities and very positive references. So in total, our conclusion and recommendation is to go with the Tyler system. As indicated, there are one-time fees related to the implementation process and conversion of $600,520. We have resources identified to be able to fund that amount. The recurring annual fees are $143,090. That is a higher cost than our current financial HR and payroll system, but within the amount that we've been anticipating as we started this process and feel that we can incorporate that in our 2027 and future budgets. And I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
All right, I think you answered them all. Excellent work. With that, all those in favor of approving Tyler Technology and the appropriate directions of staff, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to ordinances, first reading. Ordinance to amend section 10.04.406 of the zoning ordinance to allow elevated decks to encroach into rear setbacks in all residential districts. Is there a motion?
This is Nairo. I move to suspend the rules.
Madden will second.
Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the ordinance to amend section 10.04.406 of the zoning ordinance to allow elevated decks to encroach into rear setbacks in all residential districts. Is there a motion?
This is Madden. I'll make that motion.
Myers, second.
Any comments?
Just a question. So I'm assuming that this won't allow people to build decks on the property line, right?
Correct.
Or it they won't be able to extend the edge of their deck to the property line.
That is correct. All of our residential zoning districts have a rear setback requirement. So as an example, if there is a rear setback requirement of 20 feet, which is common in some of our residential areas. The deck could encroach 4 feet into that, but it would still leave a 16-foot rear total setback.
And the deck would still be at 20 feet, just to overhang it, or the staircases or something.
No, the elevated deck itself
So
would be allowed to encroach. The footprint of the building would not, but the deck could.
All right. All those in favor of approving the ordinance to allow elevated decks to encroach into rear setbacks in all residential districts, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to committee appointments of Carla Kozlowski to the Commission of Aging and Andre Procura to the Parks, Recreational and Forestry Commission. Is there a motion?
Schaefer moves.
Myers second.
Any comments? Alder Myers?
Thank you both for volunteering to help make Middleton a better place.
All those in favor of approving the appointments of Carla and Andre, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to updates on committees, commissions, and boards. I know it's January and it's cold, but yes, Alder Nelson?
On behalf of Parks and Recreation, I want to invite everyone to the public input meetings for the CORP Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. This is going to guide the Parks and Outdoor Rec priorities for the next 5 years. The first of the public input meetings is actually tomorrow evening here in City Hall at 6 p.m. You'll learn about what the CORP is and why it matters. You'll hear what's going on in the planning process and the timeline, and you'll get to share your ideas, find any gaps that we've missed places, highlight future park and recreation needs. And we really do value the feedback of the park users. So the first one is tomorrow night, and the second one is Monday, February 16th. Both are 6 p.m. here at City Hall. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that update. Anything else? Alder Hanira?
I'll just mention a couple things. First, there was a blood drive here on the 16th. I closed the blood drive, I'll say, because I was at the EMS interviews. It was quite exciting. There was an equipment malfunction that led to a puddle of blood landing on the floor. No one had ever seen anything like it. It was quite the excitement. But fortunately it landed on plastic, so there's no evidence of it. But the next one, if you missed this one and want to book a spot in the next one, is going to be Monday, March 23rd, right here from 10:30 to 4:30. So please consider signing up and spreading the word. I know also, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure Brian is probably aware of this, but Assembly Bill 885 has been introduced relating to limitations on extraterritorial subdivision ordinances of incorporated municipalities. The important thing to know is that the towns of Middleton and Springfield registered as supporting, and the City of Madison, the League of Wisconsin Municipality, and the Dane County Cities and Villages Association registered as opposed. So it would restrict our authority as the city. Just wanted to mention that. And then also for anybody who is interested in what High Road will look like in the future when it's reconstructed, there is a public information meeting scheduled for Wednesday, the 28th of January at Northside Elementary from 6:30 to 7:30.
Okay, great. Alder Schaefer?
Yeah, tourism met earlier today,
Oh, great.
and there's a lot of sad faces, I guess, that this December was a little worse than last December. Getting better, more cancellations in winter is certainly having a down drag. Their biggest concern is with the UW football, and that they've changed the way in which they schedule games, so they're taking longer to make decisions. And so some of the hotels are having to go ahead and book some of the regular customers which then blocks out and the blocking games. And so there's concern, not drastic concern, but we're just hanging on.
Thank you for sharing that. It's probably a good reminder for all of us locals to act like tourists, right? Go visit our restaurants and, go to the Mustard Museum, go do all the things. I'll try my best to help you on that one. The tough news is always tough. So hopefully that works itself out. Alder Myers?
Yes, so on the 22nd of January, so 2 days from now, Thursday, in the public library at 6 p.m., Rick Bernstein of the Dane County Historical Society will be giving a presentation on the restrictive covenants that exist on some homes. If you are a homeowner who has those restrictive covenants, the event is also a fill and file event, so you will be able to file the paperwork there, fill out and file the paperwork there to renounce that restrictive covenant on your home.
So excited. That's so great. So many things we're doing to move the city forward. Very good. Anything else? All right, moving on to convening into the committee of the whole. So I'm handing it off to President of the Council. Thank you.
So do you need me to call it into?
You can just say for the record that you're now calling the committee of the whole into session.
I will call the committee of the whole into session. First on the agenda is the presentation and discussion on the community campus plan financing scenarios.
And before I turn things over to Finance Director Bill Burns to provide this presentation, just want to provide a little bit of context and reminder. So as you recall, towards the end of last year, this body had asked for staff to schedule a couple of ongoing committee of the wholes with the council to continue conversation and discussion and updates on the community campus project. So it will be the first in probably a series of, we'll call it semi-regular cadence of committee of the whole meetings that we'll try to schedule within an existing city council meeting to provide you an opportunity to get additional information, to have discussion, to provide guidance, all of that good stuff over the next couple of months. So for tonight's meeting, what we're looking to do is provide the full council with basically the same presentation that the Finance Committee got a couple of weeks ago towards the end of the year on some financing strategies that Bill Burns and others on our team have looked at as it relates to the financing of potential options. There'll be additional conversations that we'll have with this group on the feedback that we've received from the community information sessions we've had in the past, and leading towards additional conversations as we get into later this winter and spring on how do we look at the options that have been designed to date and use the information that we received from the community, but also from you and this financing information to start making some choices, editing, those type of things as it relates to options that are under consideration for the council members.
Alder Myers.
Madam Chair, if I may, I ask for the courtesy of a 5-minute recess before we make that transition. This is something we started in the Public Works Committee a while ago, but we've hit the 90-minute mark and members may have personal needs they need to attend to.
Without objection, we will take 5 minutes. Everyone be back in your seat, ready to go at 8:35, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thanks, Dave. Very good. All right, thanks everybody for getting back so timely. We'll move on to Bill's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is the same presentation that was provided to the Finance and Personnel Committee back in November. I want to provide this for the context of all the members of the council. This looked at some financing strategies for a community campus project. Some the city's been working on for some time and doing some updated analysis to look at the current projected impact on potential tax rates and impacts on taxpayers. As a caveat, I'll say that these scenarios are conceptual. They show the potential impact. They are estimates. These numbers are going to change both in the numbers for the project, interest rates, and assumptions. We'll continue to refine this as we go through the planning process. These are based on a borrowing for a community campus project in 2027. The assumption is that they would be financed with 20-year tax-exempt general obligation notes. And other than interest earnings, this analysis does not include other potential offsets such as impact fees, capital grants, fundraising. It also is not tied to specific options. In last year, when the plan came out, there were different scenarios and options. And rather than focus on a specific building concept, this looks at different financing levels to just look at whatever ends up within that dollar amount, what would that tax impact look like, and what are some of the strategies to work that into our budget and our tax rate. Those strategies that are included in this analysis, number one is to layer in the community campus debt service as existing facility is repaid. As those on the council know, the city has been paying down debt on other facility projects, including the mock police station, fire and EMS stations. And as that debt is retired, that creates capacity to take on new debt potentially. The second would be to look at a specific structure for our capital borrowing in 2026 to front load some of the principal payments to avoid a one-year dip in the tax rate, only to have that go back up, and try to look at smoothing things over time and reduce the overall interest cost. And then the third is utilizing the additional tax base from the TID 3 closure and the reduction in the operating tax rate to offset a potential increase in the debt service tax rate, and trying to look at managing the city's overall tax rate between both the operating and the capital debt. Some of the assumptions that are in these scenarios, first of all of these are based on equalized value and equalized tax rates. That means that they are adjusted based on sales to what 100% of value would be, and then looking at the tax rate based on that equalized rate. That lets us separate out differences in assessment ratios of whether or not it's a revaluation year. It's a way of analyzing those values from the Department of Revenue so that we can compare from one year to another. It is assuming a 2.9% annual increase in valuation. It's based on our history. It's assuming an annual operating levy increase of net new construction of 2%. We've been a little bit below that in the last couple of years, but we are hoping that our operating
you.
levy
That's
net
very
new
kind.
construction will be closer to 2% going forward. Based on the most recent year that numbers are available, it's based on a median home value with an equalized value or fair market value estimate of about $532,000. And then we're anticipating that home values will continue to change. And again, based on history, it's assuming an average 2% annual change in the median home value. It's assuming, in addition to potential borrowing for a community campus project, that we continue to have general capital borrowing for other general city needs, 4.4 million in 2026, and then in future years, incrementally stepping that up to 4.6, 4.8, and $5 million per year. And it is based on an interest rate, true interest cost, looking at the overall cost of a 20-year borrowing of 4%. And that was based on an example sale for the city of Eau Claire, which has the same bond rating as the city of Middleton, that took place at the end of October of last year. And then we've added 21 basis points or 0.2%, just to provide a little bit of cushion. We'll continue to update that as we go forward based on how interest rates are trending. This slide, which is one that we've looked at in our budgets every year, looks at the forecasted future debt service levy and equalized tax rate. So the bars on the chart are the tax levy, the amount that we're collecting for debt service. And then the red line represents the portion of the tax rate for debt service. And as you'll see, the bars for the tax levy are projected to increase from 25 with our 26 budget, 2027 budget, and then start to decline in 2028 and future years as some of this existing facility debt is paid down, including the operations center, police, fire, and EMS. The orange bar on the bottom represents our general capital borrowing, so the annual issues we do each year. That will go down as we repay those issues, but we are anticipating that we'll continue to have annual capital borrowing needs, and that's represented by the gray bar. So even with that additional capital being added in as the facility debt is repaid, we're projecting the levy and the tax rate to decline. And if we take an average of what that impact is, that's about 43 cents per thousand on the debt service tax rate. And that's one of those items, the first of those strategies that we can take advantage of the paying down of debt to potentially layer in additional facility debt. The second strategy is to look at how we structure the debt service for our 2026 capital borrowing. For the city's annual capital borrowing in recent years, we've been generally borrowing for 8 years and looking at a level debt service so that our annual principal and interest payments are roughly equal. And for the issue in 2026, if we were to look at a level debt service structure, we would likely be looking at something that looks like this with annual payments of about $640-some thousand per year, spread out over 8 years. Because of the additional tax base provided with the TIF closure, the city would have the ability that if we were trying to keep our overall tax rate constant based on the 2026 borrowing, we could front load more of that principal into the first year, so that it'd actually be the 2026 tax year, 2027 payment year. We might move as much as $2.5 million of principal into that first year, so that in the first year of payment after we issue that debt, we're repaying half or even a little bit more than half of that. And then in future years, those principal payments would drop. So we'd have a larger payment in the first year, but much lower payments in those later years. And by front loading some of those principal payments, we could potentially reduce the interest expense on that issue. And that would also give us the ability to add in additional debt in those future years. And then finally, the third strategy, and one of the largest, is the impact of the TIF closure. As we've discussed with the TIF closure, there will be an impact on the levy limit for the city's operating budget. There will also be a significant increase in the city's overall tax base, approximately $720 million of value that had been in that TIF, that once that TIF is fully closed later this year, that becomes part of the city's general overall tax base, increasing our TIF out equalized value by about 15%. And with that, we're anticipating an operating levy limit adjustment of about $1 million. And even if the city does take advantage of that operating levy adjustment, the impact of the overall tax base would still allow for a projected reduction in the city's tax rate, all else being held equal. So this strategy would be to look at that potential decrease in the tax rate created by the TIF closure and having that available for debt service. So when we put those together, pay down of existing debt, structuring the 2026 issue, taking advantage of the TID closure provides the opportunity to take on additional debt while mitigating the overall tax impact for residents. The next 3 slides go through examples of what that could look like based on different size projects. So scenario A looks at a $65 million campus project in 2027. And with this scenario, we looked at a level debt service tax rate for 10 years, and then that actually shows that debt service rate decreasing each year after that. And just explain, there's a lot of numbers on this sheet, but to kind of walk through the projection. This area in blue looks at the city's property tax levy, so the amount that we're collecting for the operating levy, our existing debt service that's already been issued, future CIP debt. This would be the additional borrowing each year for our general capital projects. Then adding in debt service for our community campus project and adding all of those together for the total property tax levy. It then looks at the property tax rate, looks at that equalized value with TIF out, and there's a large jump from 26 to 27. That's the impact of the TIF closure. Calculates the equalized tax rate and then the change in that rate. So under this scenario, the debt service tax rate portion of this would be constant. The overall tax rate would actually be projected to go down slightly over time because of the operating levy limit. And if we're constrained by levy limits, again, all else being equal, that would tend to go down a little bit each year. And then finally in the green, that looks at the estimated tax on a median home. So the median home value is projected to increase by 2% per year. This calculates the city tax on the median home and shows what the dollar amount change would be. Even though the tax rate under this scenario would be going down slightly each year, it is showing a small increase in the city tax each year, and that's primarily due to the projected increase in the value of the home. So again, on an equalized value basis, we're anticipating a tax rate decrease overall of 0.6%, but if home values are increasing on average 2%, you would expect a roughly $30 to $40 increase on that median home. Going to scenario B, this looks at an $85 million project. And the assumption here was to look at trying to keep the total city tax rate constant for 10 years. And then after that 10-year period, it would start to show a reduction. So with this, with the operating and the debt service tax rate combined, it's showing that at least for that first 10 years, that would be projected to remain constant, $4.50 per thousand. That does have a projected change in the city tax for the average, or excuse me, medium home of about 2%, and that is because of that projected 2% increase in value. So under this scenario with these assumptions, the city tax rate would be potentially maintaining constant, and the change that you would see in taxes is just as the value of properties increase. And then finally, scenario 3 looked at a $110 million project. And in this scenario, it showed a 5% increase in the overall city tax rate, going from a projected $4.50 per thousand to $4.73. That's that 5% increase, but then holding a constant tax rate for 10 years before we would start to see a reduction. There's a larger impact because of that one-time increase. So in that year, it'd be about a $173 increase on the median value home. And then that goes back to about a $50 or about a 2% increase each year. So again, all of these numbers are subject to change, but wanted to show that by using these different strategies, the city potentially could look at adding in a larger borrowing and limiting the overall impact on the tax rate. And while there would be an impact projected on the median home, more of a moderate impact if we use these strategies together. So kind of next steps from here. This will be continued to be refined and updated as our continued discussions about the community campus, narrowing in on what size project the community might be considering, and then we can run additional scenarios. We'll keep an eye on interest rates. And the last step on here, I think, is very important as well, that as we worked on this analysis, we did work with Ellers on a time and materials basis. Ellers is the financial advisor that was approved in the council meeting tonight. Their assistance was very helpful in putting this together, and the plan going forward as we look at both our 26 issue and then potential 2027 issue is to work with them and then continue to update this information, answer questions, and bring different options back for consideration. Be happy to answer questions. I know I went through a lot of numbers there. Be happy to answer anything that would be helpful.
Alder Myers.
Hi, Bill. First,
You show that one. I don't have that in the presentation.
I'm gonna wait for them to resolve that before I ask my question.
There's one more slide.
Make sure that the whole group saw this was included in previous conversations with the community and the community information sessions. Bill, if you want to explain that one.
Yeah, this is really just trying to take the numbers on those big tables and kind of summarize them to the key numbers so that with each of the three scenarios, what the size of the project would be, what the equalized tax rate impact on an overall basis would be, and then that projected change in the median home value. So just kind of pulling out those key numbers as a summary point.
So Bill, if you could, and sorry, this might get a little into the weeds, and there are follow-ups. Could you tell me how the 21 basis point buffer was derived?
Yeah, that was something that I had discussed with Ellers. So we had done some initial analysis earlier in 2025. We had looked at an interest rate at that time. In working on this in early November, I had asked Ellers to look for a comparable issue to get a read on the current interest rates. They had selected City of Eau Claire, which was about 3.8% roughly for the true interest cost, which looks at essentially, you can think of it as kind of an average interest rate for that entire 20-year issue. So we kind of jointly decided, let's build in somewhat of a cushion to that. We picked 20 basis points. There's something magical about that 21 basis points, but we did want to provide some cushion. We didn't see a lot of pressure on interest rates going up, but usually we like to try to build in some 10 or 20 basis point adjustments just to allow for fluctuations in the market.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer. The reason I asked is because while the Federal Reserve is currently maintaining a neutral outlook, core inflation is also running in excess of their statutory mandate. And based on past interest rate behavior at the Fed, in terms of sensitivity to changes in the federal funds rate, I'd just like to see more of a band. So potentially 50 basis points in either direction, just so we have an idea of what realistic cost range we're looking at, especially when we're as far out now as we are from potentially voting to authorize the issue of these bonds. I'm not saying that these numbers don't mean anything, because they are useful, but it would be much more useful for me, and I think for my colleagues, to see the full likely potential range of costs modeled for each of these. So that was just a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, we can work with Ellers to do that analysis of a wider range of what a low best guess and higher would be.
Yeah.
And municipal 20-year municipal rates are going to track more closely to like a 10-year treasury bond issue rather than the Fed funds rate. So you might not see as much variation there, but it is a good point to look at a range of interest rates because we are quite a ways out from potential issue and no one has a crystal ball to know what interest rates are going to be at that time.
Yeah, and the Fed funds rate is of course a different animal than the 10-year, but the 10-year is to an extent impacted by the overall rate. So, yeah.
Anybody have any other questions or comments?
I have a couple questions. Thanks for the presentation, Bill. Can we look at slides 8 through 10 again? And one piece of information that I think is important for us to understand and to be able to explain to property taxpayers is how much in additional taxes would a home of median value be assessed over 20 years just for the community campus project under the different scenarios? And I don't think we have seen that information. So thinking back to the additional slide from Brian's computer, I feel like the 65 million is important to have. The dollar amount at the bottom of each cell that shows what the increase would be, that's important to show. The particular, what's happening with the rate, I don't think for a public information session, I don't think that's particularly useful. I think that's too much information and maybe confusing to people. So I really would like to see just, you know, here's the dollar amount we're looking at. Here's the annual average impact on taxes for a median value home. And over the 20 years of this debt service, this is how much you, the taxpayer, will be paying for the new campus total. And ideally, we would be able to compare that to what people have been paying for the mock and the fire department and the police department. Because I don't think people understand, I don't think people realize they're paying that off. And so I think giving them something, information that shows this is actually a familiar situation to be in, because we've all been paying off this debt over time as it is. And here's how much the average, you know, median value home has been paying for that debt service for those building projects. That's how this, you know, we'll compare that to what we're asking taxpayers, or will be asking taxpayers to pay for the future building. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, so we can certainly provide that information. You know, a piece of that of trying to look historically at how much was paid by equalized value homes for some of those projects. We may not be able to get an exact precise answer, especially because some of that debt was issued with other debt and refinanced over time, but we can do a best shot to try to get close to that number.
Yeah, I think that would be really useful information to be able to share with people.
Yeah, I'd like to just second that, you know, that, so that it isn't like we've never done this to you before. Anybody else? Thank you.
Just on the second agenda, I'm mindful of the time tonight, so I don't know that I need anything formal from the group at this time, but again, I just want you to know that this will be a semi-regular conversation with the additional topics that'll come up that we'll want the council to weigh and provide feedback. If there are other things similar to the comments provided tonight, you know, you think we should weigh in on, please let me know, and I'll work with the council president on the best way to handle that immediately. But I just want to introduce this as an ongoing topic here in the next couple months.
Yeah, just as a rule, I'm always going to ask about interest rate sensitivity on bond issues. So please.
Alder Crowe.
And I had mentioned this to Brian earlier too. The public information sessions, I think, are very important. And the city and the council and each of us as alders being able to respond to citizens saying, this is why the project is important, but also being able to say, what are your concerns, and being able to answer those concerns so that we can say, you know, this is why at least for me, why this project is important, what it brings to the city, because it's not just, paying for it is a huge part, obviously, but having a consistent message of what benefits it brings to the city too. And hearing concerns from citizens as to, you know, why are we doing this, you know? Being able to answer that, I think, is important. So getting some feedback from those information sessions, what people have been saying I think is important. So, yeah.
Great, all right. Meeting of the whole is adjourned.
Bringing it back into the city council meeting, we are going to move to closed session, so I will request assistance for that.
Yes, so I need a motion in a second. Motion being following, we convene into closed session pursuant to statutes 19.851C, including appointment of any public employee over which the government body of jurisdiction has responsibility. specifically in discussion of selection of assessment candidates. I'll call the roll call. This, need to indicate a yes to going to roll.
Yeah, Brian, you need a motion.
Sorry, my mic went off, so again, I'll repeat the motion that we need a motion a second. So it's to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C for considering employment of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically the discussion of recruitment and selection of an EMS chief and assessment of candidates.
Schaefer moves.
Myers second.
Okay, there's a motion from Schaefer and a second from Myers.
Madden.
Madden, sorry.
She beat me.
Got it. So roll call, Schaefer,
Yes.
Madden,
Yes.
Kalish,
Yes.
Mayor Kuhn,
Here.
Nelson,
Yes.
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Haniro,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Okay, give us just a minute or so to get things ready.